Good morning. Is it on? Good morning. Is it on?
Mic check, no?
All right, good morning. This is the March 26, 2026 Planning Commission meeting, and I will call it to order. And if we will all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready to begin? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
All over the place. Don't ask us to sing.
All right, good morning. We have some changes in our agenda this morning. Ms. Turner, if you could help us with that?
Indeed.
The 6B, there was a mishap at the Record B, and although it got posted on Lake County News, it did not show up in the Record B. So that item, when you get to it, will request a continuance. Inadvertently, something was going on with Granicus. I don't know, maybe the planets were misaligned or something, but all of the timed items for today were accidentally put under the consent agenda. So Commissioner Chavez will be so kind to make a motion when you get to that point to remove all those items from the consent agenda, and we will take them up during the timed items. And the non-timed item has a time on it that you would just please disregard. And that's it. I will pass it back to you.
Can we have a verification of the legal notices?
All items but 6B.
All items is 6B. Okay, so we're set to go.
Yes.
And we need to have a motion to change the number 4 stipulation. It is not the consent agenda, otherwise the meeting would be over in about 2 minutes.
The motion would be, right? Wouldn't that be nice? The motion would be to remove all items from the consent agenda to take them up during the public hearing.
So moved.
All right, moved and seconded to adjust the agenda, removing the items from the consent agenda to move it to action items. So all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, I think we are ready to go. Is it 9:05? All right, this item starts at 9:05, so we will be respectful and wait till 9:05. I actually cannot. What?
You could do public input while we're waiting, since we've
All right.
removed all consent agenda.
All right, thank you. So is there any public input on items that are not noted on the agenda? If you would like to step forward to the microphone, introduce yourself, and you will have 3 minutes. Is there anyone online? Okay. Someone had a comment? So anyone online who would like to give public input? No? Okay. Is it 9:05? I can't see the clock. There's a glare on it, so someone will have to tell me. All righty, okay. Yeah, we're ready to rock and roll. All right, so we have public hearing, consideration of proposal for major use permit PL 25-306 Greenfield Farms. Sergey. Thank you. And mitigated negative declaration for maximum of 3,308 square feet of outdoor commercial cannabis cultivation located at 20150 Black Bass Pass Road, Lower Lake, APN 01205202. excuse me, thank you, 86,308 square feet. All right, thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners and Chair. My name is Mary Claybon. I'm a Senior Planner with the Community Development Department. Today for your consideration is PL-25-306 Greenfield Farm, applicant Sergey Yusupov, for approximately 86,308 square feet of outdoor commercial cannabis canopy. The parcel size is approximately 40.56 acres. The permit request is for a major use permit of 86,308 square feet of outdoor commercial cannabis canopy and a Type 13 self-distribution transport-only license from the Department of Cannabis Control. Proposed Stage 1 facilities include 2 gardens. Garden A is 66,503 square feet and Garden B is 19,805 square feet. The Stage 2 facilities include adding a processing facility that totals 1,440 square feet, and this processing facility will be equipped with ADA restroom facilities. It will also be required to have a fire tank dedicated to fire suppression, steel, fiberglass, or concrete. The site description. Elevation ranges from approximately 1,760 feet to 1,800 feet above mean sea level. The topography of the site consists of rolling hills and a valley with seasonal ponds in the middle of the parcel. Land use of the property and the immediate vicinity is rural residential, agricultural, cattle range, and open space. In 2020, the applicant Sergey Yusupov was authorized to cultivate 90,000 square feet of outdoor cannabis canopy under early activation of the major use permit. The cultivation site is set back a minimum of 100 feet from the nearest property line, and the nearest off-site residence is approximately 680 feet southeast from the project site. The project site also includes natural vegetative screening. Existing uses on the project parcel include residential, accessory, and agricultural accessory structures, interior roadways, a security gate, a well, water storage tanks, and PG&E grid power. This project was analyzed under the Lake County General Plan, the Lower Lake Area Plan, the Lake County Zoning Ordinance, CEQA guidelines, and state regulations, with the findings found in the staff report. All impacts to the environment could be mitigated to less than significant with mitigation measures incorporated and outlined in the draft mitigated negative declaration, which is attachment 4 to staff's report, and draft conditions of approval, attachment 2 to staff's report. Public comment for the draft initial study mitigated negative declaration occurred from January 6, 2026 to February 9th, 2026. Notification of this project was sent on March 23rd, 2020. Middletown Rancheria responded to the notice stating that the project falls within the tribe's area of concern and had requested to review the cultural report. The report was sent to the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer, and Tribe was comfortable with the project moving forward under the mutual understanding that Tribe is to be contacted should there be any significant inadvertent discoveries. Consultation was not requested, and tribal comment is attachment 8 to staff's report. A point of interest for this project is the wetland on site. On December 19, 2019, a wetland delineation of the site was conducted. The biologists determined that there are no potential wetland features identified within the proposed cultivation areas, as the project incorporates avoidance by design. All setbacks are observed within the proposed site plans. It is important to note that there have been 3 biological and botanical studies issued for this project. There was, they were not issued, they were provided by the applicant. So we have one for a bio and wetland delineation from January of 2020. We have a botanical study from June of 2021, and we have a recently updated biological study from Graining and Associates from August of 2025. Another point of interest that I had briefly mentioned earlier in the presentation was early activation. This project was issued early activation of the major use permit for commercial cannabis cultivation in 2020 under early activation EA 20-36. This allowed up to 90,000 square foot of outdoor canopy at the site. The early activation of the project included obtaining state licensing, harvesting in the fall of 2020, and preparing the area for winterization. The required winterization included planting the site with nitrogen-fixing grass seed and surrounding the cultivation area with straw wattles to prevent sediment from leaving the site. The proposed major use permit project would occur within the same footprint as the early activation cultivation area. Public comment has been provided from 4 of the neighbors within the area in support of this project. Recommendations. Environmental recommendations include to adopt mitigated negative declaration for the use permit PL-25-306 with findings listed in the staff report. And the major use permit recommendation is to approve use permit PL-25-306 with the proposed conditions of approval and with the findings listed in the staff report. I'm available for any questions or comments the commission may have. And we do have the applicant present here in chambers and the project consultant available on Zoom.
Thank you. Questions from the commissioners?
I have questions. Do you want to go first? Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Couple of questions. First off, and this is off topic or whatever, but PL, what does that stand for? We used to say UP.
That's our new OpenGov electronic permitting system. PL would mean a planning permit.
Okay, great. Thank you. Now to the project, there was mention of shipping containers that would be temporary for 3 years. So I have a question, just looking for an explanation of why 3 years and how many containers.
Sure. So Ordinance 3135 that was adopted by the Board of Supervisors allows for temporary processing within shipping containers for up to 3 years of use. The requirements are that the shipping containers cannot exceed 10% of the permitted canopy amount. So at the time that building permit is submitted, it will be verified that the square footage of the total shipping containers shall not exceed that 10% of canopy.
Thank you. In regard to the hours of operation, can you further explain what, there's an additional comment on there for hours of operation, some flexibility during harvest? Oh, God. Sorry. Let's get rid of that. So back to the question, some flexibility during harvest. What does that mean exactly, as it refers to traditional agricultural hours specific to planting and harvesting activities?
Yes, so with that, harvesting is typically conducted in the evening hours for commercial cannabis. So the applicant is requesting that they can do additional hours outside of their traditional hours of operation for the harvesting period.
Okay, thank you. And then I had a question also on, this is a question in regard to terminology. The word historically, in the information again, that word is used historically, but it refers to since 2020. And in my mind, that's not, 2020 is rather recent. So I was just wondering if you could elaborate on the use of that word.
Sure.
And
So I do state historical uses of the property include, and then it also includes cattle range, open land, grazing, and then I added early activation because it is a previous past use that was a permitted use, so that was included there as well.
okay. And one other question that I had in regard to the conditions of approval. Under noise, it says speaks about minimizing noise impacts, and the last sentence reads, the mitigation does not apply to night work. Can you elaborate on that? And I'm sure that has to do with the extended hours, perhaps the harvesting.
So this
At night.
language is directly out of county code, and I can reference it and provide you with the code section. It would take me a moment to find it.
Okay, great. And of course, my question in regard to that is why does it not apply? You know, why is that sentence added there? Thank you, that's all the questions I have right now.
I just noted when I was doing my reading that under agency comments, the state said that they're not seeing a cumulative impacts map.
So that comment was recently received, and staff did not have time to update the staff report because that was already included within the agenda packet. But we could provide how many projects have been approved within a 3 mile and a 1 mile radius, should the commission be so inclined.
If you could just kind of give me an idea, I'd like to know.
I would rather
It's not my
not
district.
guesstimate when it comes to those types of answers. I would rather have a concrete figure available for you.
Okay, thanks. It's not a deal breaker. I'm just kind of curious. And
I know
It's not
that
my
we
district,
do have 2 permitted projects off of East Road, which isn't too far from this location. But I would have to kind of do the metrics to see the distance, and I don't want to estimate what that is.
okay, thanks.
Just as a point of procedure, I think that we've asked before for that sort of metric, if you could sort of tuck that away, that in future projects, it's something that we'd like to know.
The planners can take that into consideration. We did recently revise our staff report templates, as you can see, for ease of use to the reader, to make sure that our documents are able to be well understood, not just by the commission, by the public as well. So if that is something that the commission is requesting, staff can definitely incorporate that into our new templates.
Yeah, please do. And I did notice the new formatting. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is kind of a detail, and this may be a question for the applicant, but on page 8 of the, was it the initial study? I can't remember which document, but it said solar, it made reference to solar energy use, and it said Greenfield Farm intends to operate at 50% alternative energy use by June 1st, 2024. I'm just curious what the status is on that. I mean, these projects have been in
For quite some time. Yes, this project was originally applied for in 2020, and at that time it was applied for as a mixed light cultivation operation. The Department of Cannabis Control did not distinguish the difference between light deprivation and mixed light cultivation until recently, in the past couple of years, to where mixed light cultivation includes artificial light incorporated. With that, the project scope of this project did change significantly to full outdoor. The applicant did intend on utilizing solar at the site, but with the removal of the potential for the mixed light, that was no longer required. The applicant did actually apply for a building permit for solar prior to the requirements changing, and then pulled back on that permit because of the requirements, additionally because the solar rebates were no longer available.
And then I just have one more question. It may be answered if the applicant is going to talk to us about it. I don't know, but it's about the spacing of the plants.
I would defer to the project manager for the spacing of the plants. The project manager is Alex Yusupov, who is the applicant's brother.
Any other questions?
Yes, please, I think the procedures.
But point of order.
Yeah. We're not ready for public comment. Just hang on one second. You'll have an opportunity. Any other questions from the,
Commissioners, if I may, staff upstairs just confirmed that within 1 mile, there are 4 approved projects and 9 within 3 miles. Is that approved or total? Okay, and that is approved.
Thank you. I just had one other question. Letter dated almost 6 years ago, water metering equipment missing. As you know, I'm very concerned about water, and I want to know that it's being measured.
I can speak to that. So at the time that the project was originally sent for agency review, Water Resources had reviewed the property management plan to identify any potential deficiencies. A water meter is required to be installed during cultivation after the project is permitted, but it is not required prior to operations. So the project is conditioned and is required to have a water meter.
Just like to make some comments. It's always important to check. One of the things that I look for in projects is the comments and feedback from neighbors and people that live in, close proximity to these sites. And, we've had a lot of good comments for Sergey and their operation and, the fact that there's been early activation in the past. That's also another thing that we would have received some comments from when this early activation was there. Everything looks like Sergey's operation, like they take care of their neighbors and their property. So that's just one of the things that I wanted to point out, and that it's good to look into to see what, how the neighbors are treated, and because it is very important to see these relationships, especially when cannabis might not be, in the eyes of a lot of people, not, so that's just my comment.
all right, hearing no other comments for the moment, I will open up for public comment. Please step forward to the microphone. Introduce yourself, and you have 3 minutes.
I'm Alexander Yusupov, Sergey's brother, so I live on the property there.
Closer to the microphone.
I live there on the property full time. My brother usually comes on the weekend, so to answer your question about the spacing, they're about 5 feet apart, 3 to 5 feet apart, all the plants, and then we do have a water meter installed. We did it in 2021, so just you guys know, so the water meter is there as well. Any other questions I can answer?
Any other questions? This is project manager here.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
So I invite any other comments from the public?
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Margot Kambara. It sounds like you just got information on this project this morning about local approved projects in the vicinity of the project. You still don't have what the cumulative impact is. What is the water draw of the other projects? What is that impact on the neighbors to this new proposed project? So it seems premature to approve anything before you see that analysis and that data. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone online? Guest, please introduce yourself, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Angela Amell. First off, I wanted to start with the new staff report template. I did notice that. And it seems the staff recommendations are at the very top of that template. To me, that seems slightly inappropriate because it has the potential to create a bias prior to a full understanding of the details. That's just my perspective. Um, with this project, it was under early activation, so I'd like to ask a couple questions since it had already been operating. How many years did this proposed project operate under early activation? Is it currently still operating under early activation? Were all the taxes, including cultivation and property taxes, paid timely? And were there any violations noted during early activation or any complaints recorded? Were annual inspections done during early activation and what were on those reports? Thank you.
Thank you. Staff?
I can speak to that, yes. So early activation was issued for 6 months in 2020. That was it. There were also no inspections that were done during early activation, and very few that were done in 2020 due to COVID. And those were done for projects that had their full use permit, not early activation of the major use permit. There are no violations on site, and staff was able to meet the findings required in the staff report.
I believe she also asked about taxes.
I believe the taxes were paid, yes. That proof of taxation is required to be submitted to the department. And had there been an issue, I would have also been notified from the Treasurer Tax Collector's Office with the remaining outstanding balance.
Thank you. Other questions from the public here? All right, I will close then public input and bring it back to the commission. Further questions?
Yeah, I've run into a little problem. If the spacing is at most 5 feet apart, as the applicant indicated, that would be 25 square feet per plant. That comes out to 3,600 plants per acre. That comes out to 7,200 plants in total. At 6 gallons per day, that's 43,200 gallons. And the hydrology report is calculated to 6,000 gallons per day.
The project consultant is available on Zoom to, he may have his hand up. Kyle Geithner? Yes, okay.
Okay, if you could address that question, please.
Yes, hello. My name's Kyle Geithner. I'm a licensed civil engineer with North Bay Civil Consulting. So in the plan set, I believe, I don't know if that was provided. I know it wasn't in the staff report. There was pieces, but on sheet 7, there's kind of a detail showing the cultivation layout. We have 4 foot between bags. So I think the way I keep hearing it is we have 5 foot in between the plants, 25 square foot. That's just a little too large. So, we have them spaced to basically where the plants end up touching with their canopy. So the bags are spaced with a gap, but the way it's planted would be to where the plants are touching and creating rows. When we did that hydrology report, we were looking at the state provided amounts of water per each plant. We were a little more conservative with our amount, but we have updated those, I think, and I don't know if all of these in my future reports we have updated them, but we have checked based on the practices and talking to Alex and the early activation. Our numbers should align. I would have to go into more detail in regards to how you're describing the layout and your assumed water usage per plant.
Yeah, we generally use I believe the only study that's been done on it, and it's 6 gallons per plant per day. And
yes,
so, you're not off by a little bit, you're off by a lot, like 7-fold. You're saying that you're going to use a 7th of the amount of water that the studies suggest you would use, roughly. I mean, if their spacing is smaller, it's going to be even worse. I'm going by, the applicant said 3 to 5 feet apart. I was erring on your side and saying if they're 5 feet apart, there's going to be fewer plants. But that's a significant difference in my mind. It's not just 10%. It's 600 or 700%. So it concerns me.
Yeah, again, it's not, I'm looking at the documents as we're discussing this, and what I would need to do is kind of redo like the count and see, but again, I think from like the early activation, and I know that in the hydrology report, we did use that, what you were saying, I believe it was 6 gallons per plant per day. And that was the amount that we came up with.
Yeah, your hydrology report says 6,000 gallons per day, and my math says that you need 43,000 gallons per day.
Okay.
I
mean, I would have to discuss that. I would have to look into that and see why that was coming up that way. 43,000 gallons per day. That's an acre foot. That seems quite large to me.
So I think what we need to do is see perhaps some records of actual use. Because in my mind, this is a pretty big issue. So if you do indeed have a meter installed and have some kind of record, that would help me be able to consider this.
So I guess the way I'm looking at the report, and I'm kind of looking at the site plans, trying to get something to see it, because per each acre, I believe there is about, so I might have said that wrong. I want to say there is like 700 plants in each of these acres, because they're assumed to have an 8-foot diameter. So a little bit larger than your 5-foot diameter, I guess is what you're saying. So
yeah, I'm not
fewer
talking
than
diameters. I'm talking about spacing. If you have a spacing of 5 feet apart, 5 times 5 is 25. That's a much easier way of doing it than involving.
No, because you're not taking into account the aisles and other things that are going to be used in that space. So the plants themselves in the rows where they are, where it does look as a continuous canopy, those one would be touching. So you would have to assume 8-foot spacing, or 8-foot spacing, I guess, in that, because that's the canopy. So as they touch, 8-foot spacing there. And then in between each of the rows, we have I can go back to the detail. It is a, just trying to zoom in, sorry. 2-foot walkway besides it. So we have a 6-foot space in between each of those. So because you got to remember, at full canopy, they need to still have access in between those plants and everything. So I just believe when you try to do it per how many plants you can fit within an acre just by the square foot, you're not taking into account all the other spaces that are taken, or the other paths that are taking up access. But it comes down to, we're assuming about 700 are going to fit within that acre space, assuming an 8-foot canopy. Let's see, 100, I have 198 planters there. So it's 860 down here. So it ends up coming out to, the total, I wish I just had this. I have made changes. Like you guys said, these plans are quite older, so it's
well, rather than doing it right now, why don't you take some time, and we can get back to it in a little bit. But what I'd really like to see is, it's very difficult for us to use acre feet, and we've had this discussion before. We try to use gallons per plant, especially when they're in pots like that. I'm a pear farmer, and we do it by acres, but In this case, we try to use the number of gallons consumed
So-
per plant per day.
And so, okay, and just quickly, just so you guys are aware, and if you do look at the plan set, and Mary, I don't know, I'm sure that was submitted with everything. I mean, we've done it, a lot of iterations on this. I just did, like I said, I'm just looking at it, and on the side, I have keynotes associated to each of the layouts for the site, and I just, added them all up. I get 1,193. So we'll just say 1,200. 1,200 times 6 gets us closer to my number than your number. So again, I wouldn't have made such an egregious mistake on that. We have looked at these, and like I said, our plans, I think even with this one, we did say that that was it, but we show that it's able to produce a lot more than that demand, because I do believe that 6 gallons per plant per day is a little low. So I'm showing that we do meet that, and that is not an issue, but that there is also a lot more there. So if we do exceed that, and that is something upon this that, I think with a lot of these being approved in those areas, like they said, there are some that are close by, that would be, really good to check it. I think it's an ongoing project, an ongoing kind of thing with the county, and as they're getting their water readings and doing their cultivations, it would definitely help providing that data and being able to update these hydrology reports, because I do agree with you, and I did know where you're coming from, and but yeah, it does seem like it's about 7,000, so maybe this is a little bit low, but yeah, 1,200 plants are proposed within that 2-acre cultivation areas.
Thank you very much. Yeah, 7,200 gallons per day is a lot closer to 6,000 than 43,000. So thank you.
Yes.
Other questions?
I do. In regard to the other projects in the area and the cumulative effects, does staff have any indication or any information in regard to water use in that area, and how those sites and wells have been performing? If they're wells, I'm not quite sure what the status of those other projects are.
Yeah, I can speak to, I wanted to address the cumulative impacts public comment that we received, because we certainly want to make sure that that is accounted for. So in the initial study on page 67, it discusses cumulative effects of other projects, and our analysis relies on, it says, future projects could cumulatively contribute to significant effects on the environment. Of particular concern would be the cumulative effects of hydrology and water resources. To address this issue, the Lake County Board of Supervisors adopted Ordinance 3106, and then it goes on to discuss the requirements for the hydrological analyses and the drought management plans. So as long as everybody meets those requirements, it's basically self-mitigating, if that makes sense. As far as the use that the approved projects have been using, I can let Mary speak to that. Do we have that from annual reports?
We do have water reports that were submitted to the department for annual inspections and performance monitoring reports, but that information was not utilized for this project specifically because the hydrological analysis has a section on cumulative impacts and surrounding wells that identifies 86 domestic wells, 17 irrigation wells, 5 municipal wells, 6 monitoring wells, and 13 other wells within the groundwater basin. The hydrological analysis concludes that there is enough water at the location for recharge rate to support the project without interference to other wells.
And that's from the hydrology study provided by the applicant, correct?
That is correct. That is by North Bay Civil Consulting, and that is page 8 of 40 within the hydrological analysis.
That would be me again. And that's what I think I was referring to when I said, that was our anticipated use. And then we also looked at, because you are able to determine the uses in that area. So based on the existing use and our proposed use, there still is enough. And then we took our recharge area just to be a little more conservative. I try to do this is we don't look at the basin itself and like the recharge. We look at just our site. If it was cut off just at the property lines, could we produce enough water on our site to support our own plants? And that's when the numbers get a little closer and it gets a little tighter. But yeah, we try to identify all those potential issues.
Thank you.
Thank you. And yes, and I also appreciate that the water use will be monitored in March, April, and in October.
I'd like to just comment that that's something about these early activation. We actually kind of get to see what happens when people use this amount of water. And so it's kind of an interesting management issue, I think.
Other comments from commissioners?
I am ready to make a motion if
Thank you.
Chair.
Yes.
What?
Oh, did we? I thought I. No, we did not. No.
We had public comment.
You're right.
Yeah, we did.
We certainly did. I don't know where I've been.
Let's take a coffee break. Reboot.
We had public comment. We closed public comment. Back to the board. I think I was paying attention most of the time. So, go ahead.
Thank you. I move that the Planning Commission find that potential impacts associated with the project applied for by Sergey, I'm sorry, I'm going to mess up the last name, Yusupov, can be mitigated to less than significant through the implementation of the mitigated negative declaration for the property located at 20150 Black Bass Pass Road, Lower Lake, APN 012-052-02, will not have a significant effect on the environment, and that the Planning Commission adopt initial study PL-25-306 with the findings listed in the staff report dated March 26, 2026.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Permit is approved.
Okay. There's one more item. So B, I move that the Planning Commission find that the major use permit PL 25-306 applied for by Sergio Yusupov for the property located at 20150 Black Bass Pass Road, Lower Lake, APN 012-052-02 does meet the requirements of Section 51.4 and Article 27 of the Lake County zoning ordinance, and that the major use permit be granted based on the findings and subject to the conditions included in the staff report dated March 26, 2026.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. So, to note, the applicant or any interested party is reminded that the zoning ordinance provides for a 7-calendar day appeal period. If there is a disagreement with the Planning Commission, an appeal to the Board of Supervisors may be filed. The appropriate forms and applicable fee must be submitted prior to 5 p.m. on or before the 7th day following the Planning Commission's decision on this matter. Thank you. So we'll move on to the next item. And the next item, my understanding is that we will have a postponement.
Yes, please. It has not been properly noticed in the Record B, so we will request a continuance to a future date. We will do the noticing, so time and date specific is not necessary.
I move that we continue this item to a date uncertain.
Does the item still have to be read into the?
Please read the title.
Um,
No, not for the motion. If the chair already read the title of the item, we're fine.
Yeah,
No.
okay, thank you.
Haven't read yet.
Okay, so consideration of proposed major use permit, PL 25-155, UP 20-58, Lake Coco Farms, and the mitigated negative declaration, PL 25155, IS 20-72, for the approval of no more than 205,800 square feet of commercial cannabis cultivated and a type 13 distribution. Self-transportation license at 3417 and 3547 Hendricks Road, Lakeport, APN 005-006-07 and 005-013-01.
I move that we continue this item to a date uncertain.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. This will be rescheduled. Okay, we move to 6C. Public hearing consideration proposal major use permit PL 25-67 UP 2140 140 Soda Bay Road. Design review PL 2567 DR 2306 and mitigated negative declaration PL 2567 IS 2142 for no more than 43,200 square feet, mixed light commercial cannabis cultivation, and a 6,000 square foot processing and non-volatile manufacturing facility, and a 2,400 square foot distribution facility at 140 and 270 Soda Bay Road, APN 008 001 08 and 008 001 09.
Good morning, Commissioners and Chair. My name is Trish Turner. I'm an Associate Planner with the Community Development Department. The project consultant and the applicant are present in chambers. I would like to note that there have been several green sheets and a couple of videos submitted by members of the public, and it is at the Chair's discretion if these videos can be played, and that'll be in public comment. The project proposes a major use permit for 43,200 square feet of mixed light commercial cannabis canopy, one type 6 non-volatile manufacturing license, and one type 11 distribution license. The parcel size combined is approximately 44.31 acres. The site is located, it's not letting me change. Thank you. The site is located in the unincorporated area of Lakeport. The closest community growth boundary is approximately 3 miles north of the project parcel. The cultivation location is within the farmland protection zone and is required to cultivate within enclosed greenhouses with air filtration systems installed. The general plan designation is resource conservation, agricultural, and service commercial. The base zoning is split. It is agricultural, service commercial, design review, scenic combining, floodway fringe, waterway. It is located within the Lakeport planning area and District 4. The cultivation parcel contains existing agricultural flat fields and vineyards that have been used for agricultural activities. Very minimal site preparation would be needed for the proposed buildings. The subject property currently supports agricultural infrastructure. The site is actively farmed, containing both an established vineyard and a previously permitted hemp cultivation area. The cannabis cultivation is located within an AO flood zone, which requires that all buildings must obtain elevation certificates. In Lake County, the FEMA elevation certificate for an AO flood zone serves as the primary document to verify that a structure is elevated above the expected flood plain. All setbacks from waterways have been identified, and the project includes avoidance by design with mitigation measures incorporated to protect the Clear Lake Hitch. Next one. Thank you. Existing uses. There's an existing vineyard, a water reservoir, 2 wells, one of those wells will be for cannabis cultivation, a security gate, a bridge, power poles, and an existing driveway. The project scope is 43,200 square feet of commercial cannabis within 33,000 square foot greenhouses, 1 6,000 square foot processing and non-volatile manufacturing building, 1 120 square foot wooden storage shed, 1 2,400 square foot distribution center, 8 employee parking spaces including 2 ADA compliant at the cultivation and processing site, 6 employee parking spaces including 2 ADA spaces located at the distribution center. A total of 20,000 gallons of water dedicated to fire suppression will be installed, and bridge upgrades, which will be installing railings and new decking. The project was analyzed under the Lake County General Plan, the Lakeport Area Plan, Lake County Zoning Ordinance, California Environmental Quality Act, guidelines, and state regulations, with the findings found in the staff report. All impacts to the environment could be mitigated to less than significant with mitigation measures incorporated into the project's conditions of approval, which is attachment 2, and outlined in the draft mitigated negative declaration, which is attachment 4. Public comment period occurred for the draft initial study mitigated negative declaration from June 11th, 2025 through July 12th of 2025. AB 52 notice was sent out to the tribes on October 4th, 2022. The environmental review documentation for this project was prepared and circulated on August 14th, 2023. The Big Valley Band of Pomo Indians formally requested consultation on September 26, 2023, which was subsequently concluded on December 19, 2023. The California Environmental Quality Act analysis was publicly posted with identified errors necessitating recirculation. The tribes were included in the notification process for the recirculated initial study in June of 2025 and were notified of the project's hearing date. No additional requests for tribal consultation were received. Point of interest, water usage. The applicant has submitted a hydrology report and a drought management plan, attachment 5. The project parcel has 2 wells on site, well A and well B. Excuse me. Well B will be used for the cultivation, processing, and manufacturing building. According to the hydrology report, the daily amount of proposed water usage will be approximately 9,426 gallons of water. Based on the 6-hour well test, the water demand for the cultivation during peak demand would be less than 36 minutes of pumping daily. Another big point of interest is the Clear Lake Hitch. Manning Creek is a tributary to Clear Lake and is known for the hitch spawning areas and routes. The mitigated negative declaration has mitigation measures implemented into the conditions of approval and outlined in the draft initial study, mitigated negative declaration. The project is conditioned to protect the Clear Lake Hitch through setbacks for all nutrients and chemicals to prevent any runoff into Manning Creek. To safeguard spawning and migration, all ground disturbing work is restricted to the dry season if possible, and if not, it requires pre-construction biological surveys to ensure no impact on the species or its habitat. Elevation certificates are required for all buildings. Public comment has been submitted with concerns specifically related to the Clear Lake Hitch. Attachment 8. Recommendations. Staff recommends that The environmental recommendations is to adopt mitigated negative declaration, initial study IS 21-42 for use permit PL-25-67, use permit 21-40 with the findings listed in the staff report. Major use permit recommendations is to approve use permit PL-25-67, UP 21-40 with the proposed conditions of approval and with the findings listed in the staff report. I was paying attention with the last project, and I did look up that there are 0 approved projects within 1 mile of this project, and there are 5 approved projects within 3 miles of this proposed project. Thank you. If you have any questions or comments, I am here. The applicant and the consultant are here as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from the commissioners?
I have one quick question before we get into it. What's the elevation of this project above lake level? The 7.56?
I'll look that up for you.
I had a question. I noticed that a number of the letters were from 2023. In fact, the one that I had noted, asked a question earlier about not getting noticed on time was from 2023. So has this project been presented before the Planning Commission prior to today?
No. The public comment period was from the original initial study circulation in 2023. The project has not come before this commission.
Thank you.
And then there should be several comments from recent comments made by the public, as well as several green sheets.
Yes, I just noticed the discrepancy in the years on the dates of the letters, and so I
Yeah.
was wondering.
Yeah.
And then also the elevation of the parcels is 1,360 feet above sea elevation.
Is that what you asked?
Does somebody know offhand what the lake level at Zero Rums is?
I guess the question would be if the parcel experiences flooding during the 100-year or...
It does. And that's why there would be building elevation certificates required.
Because it said it was in the flood zone.
Correct.
Correct. Okay.
At some point, I'd like to request a break so that we can read the recent comments. There's several green sheets that I haven't had a chance to look at. Not necessarily right now, but.
Well, this might be an appropriate time before we ask for public input. I don't know what time it is. I can't see the clock. 9:59. Why don't we take a break and come back at 10 after 10?
Okay.
Give us 10 minutes. Thank you. We'll be back at 10 after 10. All right, we are back. Thank you very much. We would like to, as part of public comment, see the videos that have been provided for us, please.
Yeah, I can play those. I also wanted to let you know that Jack Smalley is in here if you guys wanted more information about the elevation certificates. He's with the building division, the chief building official.
Oh, thank you.
So let's hope I can get these to play. Oh, I forgot to share my screen. Okay. Let me start it over. Okay. This one is labeled 2025 Bridge Creek Bank Breach. These were submitted by Rose Davis.
Before you show the next one, I wasn't quite sure what we're going to be looking at. This is public comment. If you would like to step forward and give us any narration on what we are seeing, that would be really helpful.
Do you want me to replay it?
Yes, please. And would you introduce yourself, please?
My name is Rose Davidson. I live next door. That's the bridge that crosses Manning Creek. That is showing where the creek jumps the bank. There is an abandoned, capped well between those two places. And then it, in this particular one, the water went that way and it also goes down the main road. The area that he's proposing to have is off to the right, which you'll see in the next video. Yeah, this is starting the second part of the second one, but basically taking from there over. This is the area where he's proposing to put the greenhouses. This is the main road that everybody drives up and down, and I have seen many people stuck on that road being drug out because it's not well done. So, any questions?
Since that's the road, does that mean that everyone uses boats to get home?
Yes.
I'm just kidding.
Evidently. Evidently.
No.
Yeah.
All right. You have a little more time on your 3 minutes if there's any other comments that you'd like to make regarding these.
I didn't know my 3 minutes was going to be towards using it on the video, so I have other comments. I'm sorry.
Is that the field there?
This is the field out there.
Okay.
And that's the vineyard off in, just below those oak trees in the distance.
You can stay up and go ahead and make your public comments.
I'd actually rather some others.
That's fine. That's fine. Thank you very much. All right. So it is public comment. If there are others in the audience or on the Zoom who would like to step forward, introduce yourself, and each of you have 3 minutes.
Mary Jo Velasquez. I'm president of the Lake County Land Trust Board of Directors, and I'm also the lead steward for the Preserve Kulanapo. That water that you saw flowing across the grow site, it's in my public comments. I show that it hits the preserve. It forms a fake creek that jump up out of the canal connected to the lake, thinking that it's a place that they can go spawn. So then we had to call in Big Valley to come and get the hitch out. They were stranded. And then the water goes into the lake. And my concern is we're spending tens of millions of dollars to keep phosphorus out of the lake, to remove the phosphorus from the lake. I voted for legalizing cannabis because I want the illegal grows gone. I want a control of the phosphate going into the lake. And to approve a grow that's going to enrich the lake makes no sense to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Trey Sherrill. I'm the consultant that was working on this project, this application. I'd like to speak to the flooding. The reason for it is there's some trees that have fallen across Manning Creek northwest of the proposed cultivation area, and they're basically forming a dam, and so the water backs up and then floods across. It's going to cost just $250,000 alone in mitigation, fire and school mitigation fees, and several million dollars to develop this operation. So with an investment like that, they're not going to, abandon the property, allow these things to continue, such as the trees obstructing the flow of the creek and things of that nature. As of right now, the Perkins, they're not currently in this area. Their sons are exceptional soccer players, so they're down and they're currently living in Southern California, where they're part of a professional development school. But their sons are going to be seniors in high school next year, and then upon graduating, the Perkins will be moving back to Lake County. So for the last 3 years, this property has been managed by the vineyard manager who manages the vines on the property. And so what we have here is a piece of ag land that could either be used, can be used for agriculture, could go back to hemp cultivation, or it could potentially have significant investment into the property, significant infrastructure upgrades and things of that nature. I won't speak to the requirements since Mr. Smalley's here. I won't speak to the requirements associated with construction in a flood zone. Yes, even once the trees that are obstructing the flow of Manning Creek that situation is dealt with, and obviously being hitch habitat, we're going to need to coordinate with Fish and Game on how to address that issue. It's still in a flood zone, so we're still the construction standards are gonna be higher and things of that nature. And once again, I'll let Mr. Smalley speak to that. I do want to make myself available if there are any questions about the project, questions about, one of the things I do want to present, so with cannabis cultivation, as the project proposed, any kind of fertilizers, pesticide use would be over 150 feet from Manning Creek, and it would be contained within greenhouse structures. If that isn't the case, if this project isn't proposed, cultivation of any kind of traditional ag
Please wrap up your
will be
comments.
much closer to the creek without the oversight, and it definitely won't be within structures.
Thank you.
I do have some questions,
Okay.
real quick, if I may, Madam
Of
Chair.
course.
So whenever we have, so the definition between greenhouse and hoop houses are that greenhouses are more permanent, is that correct?
Yes.
And because it is in a flood zone, elevation certificates will need to be applied for and implemented.
100%.
What are the steps taken to avoid these pads, if pads are going to be built for these houses? How is that going to look like?
I would actually defer that to Mr. Smalley, but in my experience, that's where we bring the electrical and associated equipment off the ground, but the greenhouses themselves, the footings, or the earth anchor, earth point, I forgot the new terminology, that will still be in the ground. But then electrical, anything that needs to be, and it'll be like 2 feet off the ground within the structure.
Gotcha. And then that question was because I know that if they're considered hoop houses, they would have to be removed, and so this would be permanent on the property. So what are the steps taken to, for example, if we have another case scenario where the creek jumps over into the land and floods that whole area? I know that at the time of that happening, cultivation probably won't be going on because you guys would limit your growing season to some months where it's not during this rainy season. And then what would be done to avoid damage to the structures themselves from if these floods came through?
It's in like an AO flood zone, so that you were solving moving water, and that's like the regular flood zone, and that's, you know, Manning Creek, and there's actually a portion in the northern portion of the property is in, I forgot the exact terminology of that other flood zone, but that's where you will have like moving floodwaters. Here, if Manning Creek is not dammed up or, you know, obstructed, then it will flood, but it won't be like running water. It'll be like, you know, pulling water, and so it's just, you know, let the waters recede, let things dry out, and go back. And then, you know, part of that is to maintain the brush and things that could be obstructing the flow, so that flood is not an issue in the future.
And what are the steps taken to avoid having these floods? Would the property owners or some kind of association be formed to clean the creeks, to remove those trees, or who's taking?
It would be the property owner, the whoever is operating. It would be their responsibility, but we would absolutely need to coordinate with California Department of Fish and Wildlife, given the sensitive nature of the hitch and just other things. You know, there's a lot of oversight when it comes to cannabis, particularly. So one of the things is we're supposed to maintain vegetation around the creeks. We're not supposed to touch that, so that it keeps the creek shaded and cooler, and also, you know, bank stabilization and stuff like that. But in this case, where the vegetation has fallen in, is now creating an obstruction. Well, now there is something that we need to do about it to protect, you know, not only the property itself, but not only my client's property, but neighboring properties as well. You know, we don't want flood damage to anyone. Yeah. And having someone actively there, actively managing the property, versus what has been happening in the last few years with passive management via the vineyard manager.
Yeah, because I've experienced in Clear Lake, we had a storm, and the creeks were, I mean, the trees had overgrown. There was trash in the creeks, and when the water came in, you know, like a lot of water, it started jumping over the bridge, and it flooded my whole street. And I live in city of Clear Lake, you know, so it was a sight to see. After that, the city took steps into clearing the creeks, getting rid of all the trees and any obstruction to allow the flow of water through. And then we haven't had any issues since. So I would I mean, it makes sense to have those cleared, and coordinations with Fish and Game. You know, they'll just tell you like, oh, you can't do it. Obviously, when there's water in the creek,
yeah,
you would go in the dry season, go and cut the trees, take them out, and then like that, it just allows the flow of water to flow freely, and then, you know, you won't have these issues with flooding. So we're hoping that we don't, you know, in the future. I think those are all my questions for now.
Question, describe the greenhouses. You say that they're going to be elevated. What are they going to be? Have a cement floor? What sort of underpinning is it going to be?
They'll have, so they drill into the ground. Now the diameter and the depth is determined by the engineer. I don't have that, but generally speaking, they're about 2 feet down and about a foot wide, concrete footings. The poles of the greenhouses go in that. Everything is strapped in. This is just to meet the building code. Then for the flood certifications, now I can tell you what I've seen. I can't tell you what's absolutely going to have to happen here, but that's for the engineer to determine when we're working through the flood cert process. But all electrical, all equipment, they're going to have to be lifted off the ground to whatever that flood certification elevation is. On the opposite side of the road, of the highway, I'm working on a project there. The flood elevation was 1 feet above ground level, and so everything had to be 2 feet above ground level. All the electrical, all the plumbing, all the components, they had to be 2 feet above ground level.
Well, what's going to be the floor upon which?
Oh, like gravel.
Just gravel.
Yeah, gravel. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Could I, and then come back?
Okay. Any other questions of this
Yeah,
gentleman?
I have just a comment, and I'll raise my questions after public comment, but they're going to be with the cultural resource information provided. So I want to give you a chance to look over that and just get yourself familiar if you're not already familiar with it, because I do have several questions just in that area alone.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You wanna?
Do you have a question? All right, please state your name, and you have 3 minutes, please.
Jack Smalley, I'm the chief building official for the county. So I just want to kind of clarify some of the flood zone information. So these greenhouses can be on the ground. Only like residential habitable space floor has to be elevated that high. But these things are still going to have enough qualifying flood vents where water can come and go without dragging these things with them. So, and he's correct about all the electrical, mechanical, or any other equipment like that would have to be elevated. If it's an AO2 flood zone, would have to be elevated to 3 feet. So, just wanted to clarify some of that stuff. So, but the greenhouse itself does not have to be raised 3 feet.
Oh, I see, okay.
It just has to have ways for water to come in and out without destroying the structure. Okay?
Any questions for this gentleman? No? Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so it's public comment is open. Please step forward, state your name. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Bernie Butcher. I'm on the board of directors of the Lake County Land Trust. The Land Trust a few years ago purchased 2 properties from the Wright family and the Keithley family, now consolidated into Kalanipo Wetland Preserve that is directly to the north of this property. And we've, through a co-management plan with the Big Valley Tribe and substantial grant funding, we have a major plan to restore Manning Creek to its original flow, aiding the hitch cultivation and so on. So it just seems to me that a project of this scope for this purpose directly to the south of our project is inappropriate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Roberta Lyons, I'm also on the board for the Lake County Land Trust, and I'd just like to second what Bernie said, and also we're concerned that as far as the application, the biosurvey is from 2019, which was during the drought, and of course, so it didn't show any of the water flowing onto the Kalanipo property into Manning Creek and eventually into the channel. So I think you could see from the video that there was a lot of water. And I know when the last 2 winters that we've had, there's just a lot of water out there. And I'm just personally doubtful that the trees in the creek are creating that whole scenario. And I don't know if this is relevant or not, but I'd like to mention that the property is for sale. It's currently for sale. And this probably isn't relevant either, but it seems like they haven't done a very good job managing that property. So I'm not sure why they're going to, in the future. So again, just my personal opinion. So thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Rebecca Castelli. I'm a realtor. I actually represent a adjoining parcel that's currently for sale, not the one that you guys are discussing today. But the owner has some concerns regarding a portion of his property is actually the wetlands. So he's concerned with their mitigation to that protected area. He'd also like to confirm the buffer setbacks and enforcement mechanisms should any impacts occur, which I guess everyone is pretty much kind of along the same lines discussing. So I'm just here to represent them and get those answers for them, because this is actually the first that they've heard of this. They live out of the county, and he's elderly in his 90s, so I don't know as far as how far back all of these go, but I'm seeing that they're in 2022, so this is the first that they've heard, so I'm here to represent them. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone online who would like to submit any comments? Okay.
Good morning. This is Donna Makowitz from Clear Lake Oaks. As Ms. Lyons mentioned, the Pinecrest Biological Resource Assessment states that the Biological Field Survey was conducted in 2019 during a single visit. The report indicates the assessment was prepared in July 2019, revised in June 2024, correcting only the classification of water course from class 1 to 2 and updating a figure. The revision does not include additional field surveys. During the general plan discussion on March 20th at 2 hours 16 minutes, Director Turner stated, while discussing cannabis cultivation projects, that community development typically does not accept biological reports considered outdated, and that the time frame is usually around 5 years. The biological fieldwork relied upon here is now 7 years old, and at yesterday's bird survey at Kulanapo, that the Lake County Land Trust Adjacent Preserve purchased after the 2019 field survey, 45 bird species were observed, including red-shouldered hawk nest on the applicant's parcel. White-tailed kites were observed, a more recently listed protected species, indicating substantial wildlife use in the immediate vicinity may not be reflected in the single reconnaissance level survey conducted in 2019. The report also relies on database information from 2019, and species listings, habitat conditions, and regulatory statuses have changed. Reliance on older information may not fully describe the existing environmental setting as required under CEQA Guidelines 15125. The report heavily relies on best management practices to support a conclusion of less than significant impact. However, mitigation measures can only be relied upon where the underlying biological information is current, complete, and based on adequate field study as required under CEQA Guidelines 15064. The project is located adjacent to the conserved land within documented Clear Lake hitch spawning and in an area supporting high wildlife diversity. The record may not yet contain sufficient current information to support a final determination of less than significant impact. And yesterday, flooding is still observed there's a puddle close to the parcel line right next to the fence. It contained mosquito larvae and small fish fry. I took a photo but didn't take any physical samples because it could have been hitched. So please consider whether additional biological surveys, updated wetland delineation, and a higher level of CEQA review is necessary. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
I wanted to return to, you had mentioned you wanted to ask questions about the cultural study.
Correct. Did we have any other questions before I get into?
I had a couple, if you wouldn't mind.
Yes.
Okay.
So you said that the vineyard was managed.
Yes,
Do you know who manages the vineyard and for how long? Oh, wait. He needs to.
This is the applicant, Anthony Perkins.
Hi. Umberto's Vineyard Management. He has license to spray pesticides, organicides, all that stuff. He manages the vineyard. He has been doing it since day one.
Which is when?
I think we purchased
20 years?
I think we purchased it in 19. He did not do it prior to that. It was a different owner's different thing.
Okay. All right. So is the issues with the creek, this is a question for Trey, I guess. I'm not sure. I'm not sure of your affiliation with the project.
This is the applicant. This is Anthony Perkins.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So is the creek, is the problem area, you indicated that whatever problems areas are in the creek, is that all on the property?
It's
owned by the property owner, or
on the property and on the adjoining parcel.
Okay.
It's
both sides.
So what happened? We walked this in late 2023. I walked the site with Big Valley Tribal Historic Preservation Officer, as well as California Department of Fish and Wildlife, the hitch specialist that they had there. What we could see is that on the opposite side of the creek, a tree had gotten eroded out from under. It fell in. When that happened, it pushed the water of Manning Creek into my client's property, and then that undercut several trees that then fell in. And then so the combination of all of those trees together are and then all the debris that is gathering on that, they're acting as strainers, so all the debris is just basically forming more or less a dam, you know.
Okay. And then I had a question on the growing season, because you are using greenhouses, so that kind of changes. It's not outdoor cultivation.
Correct.
So what is your intended growing season or seasons?
So, you know, most of the activity would be from like April to November, but there would be some shoulder work, you know, some cultivation on a smaller scale started in March, and then processing would probably continue and through December, maybe even to January. So it wouldn't be cultivation, it would be after, you know, cultivation would wrap up in November, but there's still like the processing of the harvested plant material, which would occur for several more weeks.
Okay. I think that's all the questions that I have. Turn it over to my fellow commissioner.
Could I?
Thank you.
So I want to just bring everybody's attention to initial study, CEQA Section 5 Cultural Resources, and just for the record, I've reviewed hundreds, maybe thousands of these cultural resource initial studies, and this one is listed at less than significant with mitigation measures. And I haven't seen maybe two out of that 1,000, 2 or 3, a handful that had potentially significant impact. And when you look down to some of the discussion and what's disclosed in this report is that there's 28 isolated artifacts that were identified, 3 isolated historic artifacts. There's 8 map-sensitive sites within a quarter mile of this project. And in all my professional work, this could potentially qualify as a cultural resource district, which would have to have the support of course, the property owners. And what this tells me, this is a highly sensitive area. And when I look at the information and why sometimes I don't think the less than significant meets that threshold, it should be a potentially significant impact in my reading, is the cultural resources that are identified, and then it says down in the second paragraph, due to the potential, this resource likely meets criteria delisted on the Public Resources Code as a significant historic site, and item 1 that has cultural value for a descendant community. And so what this is saying is you don't see this a lot in a lot of our reviews. And so this is telling me, without looking at the cultural resource report, that this is a highly sensitive area. And with those 28 isolated prehistoric artifacts, we're talking about a 50-foot buffer and potentially 28 50-foot buffers on the project. I just don't understand how the work is going to be done unless there's a significant cultural resource data recovery. And so that would be my first question, and I guess the second part of that question is, knowing that there's a sensitivity of cultural resources, there is not a, which will, I guess, come later, is the cultural resource plan. I'm sure you've been a part of writing those cultural resources plans. I to date have never seen one that has been approved by the county or submitted to the county from an applicant. So I have no clue what that's going to entail and how that will potentially address any of the concerns that I have in terms of the cultural resource section. I do see Tribal Historic Preservation Officer was in attendance. And so even the idea of a tribal monitor, this is going to be a site with potential impacts. which is going to require most likely a team of monitors depending on how much earth moving is happening at a time at once. So I'll start there and see if you can provide any clarity to me or any thought process or how you guys are looking to address those concerns.
Yes, yes, sir. Without providing too many specifics, what you noted is there were lots of items were found. There's one area that is within the existing vineyard, so it's not part of the proposed development area. That was a significant cultural resource site, and that is the site that the buffer would be around. So the buffer would not be around all the other isolated artifacts that were discovered. No artifacts no items were discovered in the area of the proposed cultivation operation. That being said, the area where they were discovered is because ground disturbance had previously happened for the vineyard or for the road to get to the vineyard. So the high expectation of discovery during development of this project. And for that reason, that's where the tribal monitors and working hand in hand with the Big Valley Tribal Historic Preservation Officer would be required. To that effect, this is my first time. Normally, when I enter into my clients enter into a monitoring agreement with the Tribal Historic Preservation offices, we do it directly. This is the first time that it's being incorporated into the conditions of approval. So that was just a unique thing for this project versus when we're working with other areas of the county. Did I answer?
I think you're going in the right direction.
Yeah.
The part that is of concern again is those isolated artifacts could be elevated if the proper studies are done on those items. And I understand that if you're saying those artifacts aren't coming from the specific site, then the concern is what's under that site or what's already been impacted by any development that's occurred there historically.
Yeah.
And so thinking about that and trying to understand how you're going to, if you're not raising the land, I'm trying to understand the ground disturbance, the anchoring, what the footprint's going to look like, what potential impacts can happen within that work. There's a lot of information that's not readily available and doesn't help me make an informed decision on what I potentially don't know will be there. But based off of what is identified and shared in the data or in the initial study, it sets off a big concern for myself.
Understandably so. If there is a mechanism, I would love to be able to provide you with the study. I'm just not, I used to be a little bit more careless with submitting studies to the county, and they're like, no, you got to do it this way. We have to make sure that everything is confidential. And so I'm just trying to, I'll do whatever the right thing, is to do. I just don't know. I would love to be able to provide you with the study itself.
And if I may, I guess I never introduced myself. Michelle Iris, Senior Planner. I pulled up the study just to double check to your comments, Commissioner Brown, which are always very valued. Trey is correct in that most of the items found were on the adjacent parcel north. There were 5 found on the present parcel, and I know I can't say much more than that. Which is why we do require the monitoring as a condition and mitigation measure. To Trey's comment, we don't always require that from the county side because of legalities and a nexus, and it's a third-party agreement and all of that that we've talked about before. But in this case, we did require the monitor, and there are 6 tribal cultural resources mitigation measures related to if something is found, the monitoring, the training, and the practices that will be taken in the event
Correct.
that something is found. So that is why we were able to determine that it was less than significant. I wanted to speak to that part since that was our analysis.
Okay. Well, and I appreciate that, and why this is, again, a very important area to address is
Absolutely.
Section 4, I believe, the cultural mitigation. It's talking about the project site does not contain a cemetery, non-formal cemeteries. And knowing the site and accounting for traditional rites of passage, we would be talking about cremation. So there's potential for this area to have cremated remains, which again will need to be identified by a tribal monitor with the specific training. And then so it goes back to, again, even some of the other cultural conditions of training staff. You're not going to be able to train project staff to identify human remains that are charred and have been burned. And so there's a lot of emphasis being put on the applicant and their staff, which I don't think is doable. And so just again, not being familiar with the cultural resource plan, not seeing one, I would hope there would be an example that could have been shared to, again, address some of those concerns that are coming out in the information and conditions that are listed on the cultural resource section. And so those are my concerns. And I feel like, Trey, you've come before this commission. I feel like you do, from the information that I reviewed, that you do take into consideration the concerns. And so I'm confident that you guys are looking, but I just don't have enough information to say that I can put a stamp on this that, yeah, it meets that for my review. So that doesn't mean it's a whole no at this point for me. It's just this is a section, along with the other environmental analysis, that is a concern for myself.
But may I provide just a little, Mr. Smalley recommended I just provide a little bit of explanation, like, so as far as ground disturbance is concerned here, there would be some blading of the grasses that, and the topsoil that would occur, and that's going to be the first opportunity for discovery of anything. And so that's going to be when the tribal monitors are very important to be on site. The next would be drilling or augering of the holes for the concrete footings for the greenhouses. That would be, checking through the spoils of the augers. And then the last thing would be any trenching that's necessary. I don't think there would be very much trenching at all, because we've talked about the flood certification and all that. So I think most everything will be on the surface or even elevated off the ground surface. But so when it comes to monitoring and the construction cycle, it's going to be that initial, removal. And that's probably why, if you could see the map, you would see it. So it's like, wherever the vineyard was and wherever the vineyard manager was spraying Roundup, to keep the weeds down, that's where they found artifacts. And so once we are able to see, the ground surface here, I'm quite certain there'll be more discoveries. The significance of the discoveries we won't know at this time, and it will be up to the tribal monitors to tell us the significance at that point.
And so is the applicant prepared to invest in a data recovery effort at that point if something significant is found, or even prior to the ground disturbance?
Truthfully, I'm quite confident. Okay, yeah, do you want to?
As far as financially, yes, 100%. As a retired builder-developer, we've had to protect from turtles and certain things in the areas that I have built in the past. In a situation like this, you can also build up the soil, make a pad, which preserves and undisturbs everything. Compact it, and so an acre of pad, or acre 0.25 to build up and protect and preserve what's underneath, is also an option. Thank you.
And I believe the applicant has already entered into a contract with Big Valley, is that correct?
No, that was what was unique here, is normally we do enter directly, but in this case, Big Valley did, through consultation, added the monitoring to the conditions of approval. So for me, that was unique. It's my first time going in that route.
So the mitigation is prior to any groundbreaking activity.
And so is what is the term you used? Is blading, is that the term you used?
Blading, yes,
And
scraping.
so is that considered an actual ground disturbing activity
Mm-hmm.
that requires,
Oh, yeah.
so you actually have to get a permit to do blading?
Yeah, the ground disturbance. So in this case, I don't believe this would trigger a grading permit, because I think anything would be under the building permit, but it's the condition of approval. So before any development, I made the comment earlier, just, once the mitigation fees alone are $250,000, this bill is multi-million. This is not something that someone's going to take lightly if they undertake it at all. It's a significant investment. And so with such a large investment, there's going to be a lot of making sure everything's done right, because you don't want to lose that investment, basically.
Okay, I appreciate it, thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to comment that using an auger or a disc blades, that alone is going to destroy any, artifacts, any artifacts. I've seen arrowheads that have been broken in vineyards.
Yeah, and then so prior to the vineyard, this property was an orchard. So at some point they ripped out the trees and planted vines.
Yeah, that was going to be another question, if it had previously been disked before or bladed.
Yeah, and you would assume that if there was an orchard removed, that it also had been ripped at some point. But since my clients had it, it's just been the vineyard.
Yeah, because usually when they do the CEQA, they have to evaluate it as it is when they first do their initial study. So, previous uses just add to the historical what uses and everything that has happened in the past, but they have to evaluate it as it is at that moment. So that's another thing to think about.
I have a question on the initial study on page 16. They reference an odor control plan. I couldn't locate one, but with 30 greenhouses and processing, certainly that will need to be in place.
Yeah.
Can you give me the status of that?
So it's quite simple if the greenhouses are constructed to incorporate that. A lot of times what we're having now are people using like greenhouses that wasn't part of the original construction, and it becomes problematic. But in this case, the greenhouses themselves will have vents that will exhaust through carbon filters. So one air will be large fans that are forcing air into, one end it will have large fans forcing air into the greenhouse, and the other end will be the exhaust vents. They'll have shutters, and then behind the shutters will be carbon filters.
Okay, it's just a concern because it's really a very urban interface.
Absolutely.
Whereas other projects are not so. Thank you.
And if it's helpful, the odor portion is discussed in their property management plan in the attachment to the staff report beginning on page 7.
Oh,
that's
I must have missed it. Thank you. Other question of this gentleman before we?
Yes. So also, since we're in the property management plan, I believe it was the photo at the first page, which shows well, actually it's a vineyard, but must have been a different photo that I saw. That there was hemp planted on the property in the proposed cultivation site.
Yeah, so there's two parcels. There's a northern parcel, southern parcel. The northern parcel is almost all a vineyard. The southern parcel, where the proposed cannabis operation would go, that supported almost a 10-acre hemp operation for 1 or 2 years.
What years was that?
1920.
2019-ish?
Yeah, 2019, 2020, in that range. So part of this application is you're not allowed to have hemp cultivation occurring on the premises. And so they had to cease hemp cultivation to allow this application. The county wouldn't even accept the application without rescinding the hemp permit first.
And I'm assuming that since that took place 2019, 2020, for the last 6 years, it's been vacant. Or
it's been vacant. Anthony has told me. that the vineyard manager has been mowing the grass, but that's about it of this area. You know, it's kind of like talking about the sequence. Like this is the condition that we arrive at. We submit the application, and we're not supposed to do any disturbance until we get to here.
Mm-hmm. Also, so you said about 10 acres of hemp was previously
9-8, I think.
Okay, 9 or 8. During that time, because I would say that the smell of hemp would be close or similar to the smell of cannabis. Were there any previous complaints regarding the odor in that area? You know, we can see there's some commercial buildings and fairly developed all the way around. Were there any complaints filed during the hemp operation?
I'm not aware of it. I didn't become a part of this project until after the hemp was done. So you could ask, did you have any? And then, like you said, the transfer station is between this property and Soda Bay, which I've never actually smelled anything bad there. But I'm, you know,
yeah. So
for perspective.
I guess the connection I'm trying to make is that if it was, let's say, 8 acres or 9 acres outdoor, spanning the entire southern parcel or lower parcel, and this will be greenhouses with filtration systems. So I'm trying to see what the difference would be in comparing those two uses, in terms of if there was any odor complaints and if those would be minimized with the proposed project.
Yeah, I mean, so that's is like, you know, they could return, you know, let's say we don't move forward, we don't get approval there, we don't move forward with this project, well, then they could return to cultivating hemp there, they could, you know, or strawberries or whatever, you know, it could go to whatever. As far as like odor impacts, I would imagine that 9 acres of hemp or 10 acres of hemp would have a much stronger odor impact than, you know, 30 greenhouses where there are filtration systems. Definitely on fertilizer and pesticide use are going to be a lot less, you know, so to be approximately, you know, 2 acres of greenhouses versus 10 acres of just, you know, outdoor applications or whatever. So when it comes to fertilizers and pesticides, you're going to have maybe not less per like square foot, but less overall on the property use of those two things. And then for odor, I mean, it would have to be less when compared, if we're just comparing to hemp outdoor, right?
Okay. And then I guess another question that was brought up about the biological field surveys is the most recent, the 2019 biological field survey.
Yeah, and then that's just what, you know, the existing site conditions were at the time. It was a hemp farm, you know, when we stepped foot on. Now 6 years have gone by, and so therefore, you know, one of the first conditions is pre-construction surveys, and based on Donna's comments, I'm going to say that construction shouldn't occur during the nesting season, so we'd have to wait till I think August to start. Any construction, I don't think any construction will happen this year, regardless, but. So it'd be like August of next year, or whatever mitigation measures. I mean, this is, as you've noticed, there's lots of different things we're going to have to pay attention to, and then that brings me back to like it's a significant investment to actually get this up and running, and so anyone that is doing it is going to make sure they adhere to each one of those because they don't want to lose that significant investment or put it at risk.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my comments.
Could I add one clarification as well? There are mitigation measures, as Trey mentioned, for pre-construction surveys. I was going to bring that up in response to the public comments from Audubon that we received. And also wanted to clarify, just for the commission's information, that the wetland preserve is about 1,300 feet north of the cultivation site in the project parcel. The code requires a 100-foot setback, so I just wanted to provide that for information.
Can you just have clarification? This is an ag and resource conservation designation, the property? Okay, I saw that on page 40 in the initial study. I just want to confirm that. Thank you. Other questions? Go ahead.
Does staff have a map showing exactly what the zoning is on the property? Because you said there's multiple zones on that parcel. And another question that I had is, because it's been brought up that, part of the flooding that we've seen on the property was caused by backup in the creek. Is the clearing of the creek part of this proposal to avoid future flooding issues in the future?
Can I just comment on that?
That was not analyzed as a part of the project, no.
The streams in the Big Valley area are naturally meandering, and for a tree to fall into a creek is a natural process. So if we go in and start changing that process, we're changing the stream flow. We're altering it. I just wanted to point that out.
Well, I agree, and it would require, consultation with Fish and Game, and so.
So the comments about the tree falling prior to whenever that happened, tree falls in the woods, so we don't know maybe when the first one fell, but this property has been long-standing and water and water issue with the property. So this is maybe perhaps exacerbated by that, but this is not a new issue for this property. Is that correct?
To our knowledge, based off the information we heard, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to make some comments if I could. Go ahead.
Just real quickly, if we can just go over the map real quick, as she's got up, and then, thank you. Oop, it went away.
The split zoning is whenever you see the green, that's agriculture. Where you see the dark red, that is the service commercial. So that's where the zone is splitting at.
So everything that's pictured up here, this is the entire property?
So where the star is, the yellow star, the big yellow star, that's where the cultivation site is proposed.
okay.
And that's in agriculture. And then down the little star down there, that's service commercial. That's where the distribution center would be proposed.
Where's the designation for the resource conservation, or is it?
The general plan, that's the
Oh, I see.
yeah,
Got it.
that's the general plan designation, and it will be the creek.
Okay.
That's what the resource conservation would be, the creek.
And
Thank you
to
for that
clarify,
clarification.
the thinner red lines right here, that's the parcel line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
This is the split zoning in the creek, but this is the entire parcel here. This is that vineyard parcel, and then this is where the wetland preserve is located.
Thank you.
It seems to me, we have a number of green sheets. We have 40 pages of public input, none of which supports this project, unless I missed something. It seems clear to me that this is inappropriate for this area. We have biological issues, cultural issues, multiple neighbor concerns. So I'd like to make a motion to deny this project if you'd like to comment on.
Yeah, before you do so, I would also like to add that at this point in time, I can't agree with the information that I have before me, that this project with its mitigation measures would be less than significant impact. And so therefore, I too am not feeling like approval of this project today is appropriate.
I'd like to add that considering the history of this parcel, I don't think it would ever be appropriate.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I just would like to add, this is a well-intended effort, and I think, the investment is a big commitment, and not trying to understand without knowing how the applicant is going to respond, their team. I know what it looks like to do a data recovery, and I know that how that can impact a project and even delay projects, which will cause other financial issues. And so I guess, some of the things I wanted to hear was, we're committed to doing that. And this is a unique circumstance, like you said, Trey, from other projects that we've reviewed at this commission. And I think the part is without that information, you don't know what's there. The data recovery would support having real-time information and what's contained in those sites, what those isolated artifacts actually mean, and where they fall in the range of 500 to potentially 20,000 years old. That's a lot of time frame, and once it's gone and it's not addressed, it's gone forever. And that's the part that doesn't sit well with me. And I think going forward, again, whatever this turns into, that's always going to be a concern, as you move forward, is how to address that cultural resource, the issues that are within that cultural resource for myself, and the other environmental conditions that are definitely a part of this project. So I would support not moving forward with this project myself.
You have any comment?
No comments.
So I also agree that I think that, an interesting design of a project, this is not the location for that project. This property really does not support that kind of a project going forward. So if you would like to make a motion?
Yes, I'd like to thank staff for their hard work. I move that the Planning Commission find that the potential impacts associated with this project applied for by Anthony and Matsuki Perkins cannot be mitigated to less than significant through the implementation of the mitigated negative declaration for the property located at 140 and 270 Soda Bay Road, Lakeport. APNs 008, 001, 08, and 008, 001, 09 will not have a significant effect on the environment. I move that the Planning Commission, so that's a motion. I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Just, maybe I heard this wrong or whatever, but you said will not have a significant effect on the environment. Should that be will?
I stand corrected. They will have a significant effect on the environment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All right, moved and seconded to deny this project going forward. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I would like to further move that
You forgot.
if,
all opposed.
go ahead.
All in favor. All opposed.
Oh, I thought I said all in favor.
You did say all in favor, but now
Any
you need...
opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 4-1.
I move that the Planning Commission find that the design review PL 2567, DR 2306, and major use permit PL 2567, UP 2140, applied for by Anthony and Matsuki Perkins for the property located at 140 and 270 Soda Bay Road, Lakeport, APNs 008, 001, 08, and 008, 001, 09, does not meet the requirements of the Lake County Zoning Ordinance Article 27, Article 51.4 and Article 54.5, and that the design review and major use permit be denied based on the findings listed in the staff report.
All in favor of the motion for
I'll second.
deny? Oh,
I'll
sorry.
second.
All in favor of the motion to deny?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion to deny passes 4-1. So the applicant or any interested person is reminded that the zoning ordinance provides for a 7-day calendar day appeal period. If there's any disagreement with the Planning Commission, an appeal to the Board of Supervisors may be filed. The appropriate forms, applicable fee, must be submitted prior to 5 p.m. on or before the 7th day following the Planning Commission's decision on this matter. This concludes this item. Thank you. So, next on our agenda is public input. Is there any public input on items that have not been noted on the agenda?
I think you already did public input earlier.
Oh, we already did that. Thank you.
But do you want to take a break?
Yeah, let's take a 10-minute break till 11:20, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back. We are ready to proceed on with our item 7A, which is Planning Commissioner's Handbook, Chapter 1. So this is something that we requested to do some staff development. And so I will hand this over to Maria Turner, who will walk us through this.
Thank you. I am so excited to do this. I think this is such a cool idea. When I was thinking about it late last night, prepping for today, I realized that we don't want to do it. I don't think we want to have like a long, boring webinar. And as I was reading and reviewing Chapter 1, there are 3 beefy topics just in Chapter 1. And for anybody watching on television, we use the Planning Commissioner Handbook that is from the Institute of Local Government. You can access that handbook. It's attached to our agenda item, as well as, they listed a website that's not the usual one, but it's ILG for Institute for Local Government, planninghandbook.org. And it's a great handbook that actually, Institute for Local Government is an organization that works with municipal jurisdictions. So governments, water districts, all kinds of public entities. So because they deal with them from all over the state, some of them are huge, like LA, and some of them are tiny, like Lake County. So a lot of the information that you'll see in this book is appropriate for our body, but some of it looks different in Lake County because of our size. And I'll sort of point those out as we go along. So we're going to do the first third of Chapter 1, which is Chapter 1, the Planning Commissioner's role. First, we talk about what is a planning commission. Excellent. And thank you. Very good. Excellent. Let's stop right there. So as I know you all know, but for the TV audience, a planning commission is an advisory body appointed by the governing body, which in this case is Lake County Board of Supervisors. You're responsible for directing the short and long range growth and development of a jurisdiction, and I won't keep reading all of this. I just wanted to read this one sentence. Through maintenance and implementation of the county's general plan, associated specific plans, rules, and regulations. So in Lake County, that is our general plan, all 8 of our local area plans, which are our specific plans, and the rules and regulations, which are our zoning ordinance codes. This goes on to talk about how some planning commissioners are picked because of their land use experience, and some are not. And in Lake County, what I wanted to point out is that we've got a really strong planning commission right now. We have 3 commissioners with great experience in agriculture and farming, which is a top criteria. It's just a top aspect about Lake County is how important our ag is. We also have a commissioner experienced in marine development and one who is very aware and knowledgeable of tribal cultural resources and the importance of preservation. So this commission, even though you didn't come from planning, you aren't planners, really represent a number of things that are very dear to our county and important of preserving and encouraging and supporting and developing. So this is an awesome commission. Now, a jurisdiction doesn't have to have a planning commission, but the Board of Supervisors would have to do it then. And our board has, what's the word? That's it, delegated authority to this commission for land use decisions. And you act as an advisory body, but you also make decisions. Hey, feel free to jump in anytime if you think there's something important. This is good. We're sort of learning. We're building the plane as we fly.
So we don't truly do planning. We are responding to items that come to us based on the various general plan, associated plans, and rules and regulations.
Excellent question. Let's take a moment to really unpack that. Right now, we're going through the Lake County 2050 planning process, and that is updating the general plan is where we get the community's vision for what they want to see in Lake County for the next 20 years over a number of different criteria. That community vision is then approved by the board and certified by the state, and you as a planning commission need to make sure that every project that comes before you is consistent with that community's vision. So in essence, on one hand, you're not doing the community visioning process, that sort of planning. You are rolling it out. But the actions that you take, in effect, are also doing planning, because you're either modifying a project or approving a project because it's consistent with that community's vision, or denying a project because you just don't see how it is going to be that asset through, conveyance of the community's priorities and visions. So it's a yes and no sort of thing. Like sometimes we'll tell this body that you're not policymakers. You don't, you are somewhat hemmed in by the plans that have been done by the board. You can't just make stuff up. And so that is one limitation. But through your actions, you are furthering the community's vision.
So a wonderment is that we have, and of most recently, cannabis projects that come to us. And when my question is about planning, it may fit the plan, but if we look at the overall, and that's why we ask what else is going on around, we don't necessarily consider everything else that's going on and how this particular item fits in an overall look at a community.
Sometimes you do. In this last one where you denied the project, one of the reasons you did is because you did not feel it was an appropriate land use at that specific location. That was an opportunity for you to take a look at the surrounding environment, surrounding uses, and just you took your position that it was not compatible.
Yeah. I guess sometimes it feels like our decisions are sometimes siloed.
Yes.
And with the idea, are we planning in sort of the greater sense? And now with our plans being under review, it makes everybody think a little more about the global look of our community.
Yeah.
And so that was sort of the wonderment about asking, are we really planning, or are we more reacting?
You're sort of the gatekeepers. A project will come to the county, it'll come across the counter, and the planner starts working with that applicant, and they are doing a lot of that in-depth review to make sure that that the project is something that we can support as a department. And so we're doing the first line of review to make sure it's compliant with the general plan, the local area plans, and the zoning ordinance, as well as a number of other plans that we would be happy to supply to you, which are our aggregate resources management plan, or our, what else? Michelle, jump in. There are other plans I can't really think of right now, but they'll come to me. And so we're doing a lot of this in-depth review. What type of soils are there? Is there any serpentine there? Those sort of things. And putting those into what we're working on is a more succinct and concise staff report outline, which you just saw today, in order to convey the key points, the important information, to hand it to you so you can do your review as well as a deciding body. So yeah, you're not always doing planning in that you are not creating policy. The policy is actually created right now, it's through the Lake County 2050 process by the public, then comes to you for your review, then goes to the board, which is the deciding body on the general plan and local area plans. So that's the long-range planning process, the establishment of the community's vision for the next 20 years. And then you're the gatekeepers to make sure that what we're serving up to you, you agree is compliant or not.
Can you define gatekeeper a little better for me? What makes a project come before us?
Okay, so we get a project in front of us. Some of them we're like, oh, you must be kidding, and we give it back to them. We don't really work on it. But let's say we get a good project, a project that's complete, that looks like we can actually support it. That's when we start doing all of our review, our internal review and our agency review, and it all comes back to us with either questions for more information, which we then convey to the applicant, or recommendations and conditions. Like, say a cultural resource report comes back to us with definite, strong recommendations. We're going to take those, or a hydrology report, a biological report. We take all of these recommendations. Air quality has permit requirements. Public Works wants a road study. We take all of that during our processing, and we're either getting the more information that these stakeholder agencies need, or we're taking these recommendations and considering them and translating those into conditions of approval and mitigations in the initial study.
Is there another step, a zoning hearing?
Oh, zoning administrator?
Right. So you're going ahead of me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're on page 3. You're on
Okay, no,
page
no,
9.
before
I haven't even gotten to page 8 yet.
Okay, sorry. But I do have one more question that maybe is still on page 7.
Okay.
So, are there projects that happen in the county for which the county doesn't have oversight? And
yes,
to that point, I've asked several times about the apartment buildings that are next to the Kelseyville post office, wonderment of where those guys come from. How did that happen? And I haven't gotten an answer yet.
Is that the one that is going achingly slowly?
Well, but there's one that's already in place. But yes,
those were years ago.
They're years ago. But did those go before the Planning Commission?
Pretty sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, the one years ago, the one that's achingly slow, is that never came.
So I don't think that you've defined what makes
what makes you a gatekeeper. I didn't answer your question.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, let's go back to gatekeeper. I'm pretty sure that was a second phase of the one that's been there for a few years. So pretty sure that did go before a planning commission years ago.
So is that federal?
What made it go before the Planning Commission?
Okay, so now that's the second question. Let's go back to gatekeepers. What I mean by gatekeeper is that you are taking the work that we have done, as well as the supporting documents that you review on your own, as well as your site visit, and it's up to you to make your decision on whether you agree that this project is compliant with the general plan, the local area plans, and the zoning code. That's up before you. And if you don't make that decision, there's nobody standing behind you to make that decision. In that essence, you are the gatekeeper to make sure that these projects are compliant.
But what are the projects that don't come before us?
I think she's asking what is
Discretionary versus ministerial. But let's let Nicole jump in.
So, all the authorities granted by the state to the board. The board divides its authority up and it distributes it out, and that's in the ordinance. And they say, we're going to give this to this entity, we're going to give these powers to this entity, and we're going to give these powers to this entity. And then they create that structure there. In the case of planning, what they did is they divided it into basically 3, including themselves, authorities, right? You have the zoning administrator, who has specific projects under the ordinance that are to go before the zoning administrator. So what part of staff's determination in initial project review is, does this fit into that category of the projects that fall in the authority of the zoning administrator? Or does it fit in the category of projects that fall in the planning commission? Or does it fit in the category of projects that fall in the board's authority? And there are some that don't come to you. They go by by operation of law directly to the board. They may pass through you as an advisory, but you don't make a decision. Normally, it isn't necessarily split along discretionary and ministerial, but that tends to be how it washes out. The zoning administrator deals with a lot of some discretionary, a lot of ministerial. And the difference is, a ministerial project is something that has no discretionary element to it. In other words, it is a check-the-box decision. So it says, here are the elements. If you meet these elements, the ordinance will say that, state law will say that, federal law will say that. Here are the elements. If you have all of these elements, you're good to go. So all of the review authority has to do is check those boxes while reviewing your project or your proposal. And if all the boxes get checked, you get an approval. There's no discretion there. They don't analyze it. They don't review it. They don't go through they don't order reports. They don't do them. But a discretionary decision is not one that is just check the box. It involves an analysis of things like the stuff that's brought up to you every meeting, where you are asked to use your discretion in reviewing the elements of a project. So are the findings we need to make met? And then you analyze the whole of the project in relation to the findings you have to make, and you determine based on your discretion whether or not they've met those criteria. And it's not going to be, it's a harder type of decision. It's not going to be a check the box. Are they 50 feet away from the line? Does it have all of the correct bolts? That kind of thing. You're not going to be asked to do that usually, but I'm hoping that narrows that down.
That does a lot to answer the question, but I have one more question. So the zoning administrator checks some boxes. Is the public allowed access to that process?
Yes, there is a process for the zoning administrator. It's not as involved in the sense that there aren't necessarily, I think you do have set meetings, don't you?
We schedule meetings as needed. So
Yeah.
when we send out the noticing, it's worded differently than a major use permit. It's worded to say that we do intend to approve this project unless we receive a request for hearing in writing by some date and time. And so if there is no request for hearing, we don't hold the hearing.
And if I may, I think this might be helpful. I've pulled up some code sections on the screen. So this is here in our zoning ordinance. We have each of the articles that tell you when a minor use permit is required, when a major use permit is required, and when something is allowed. That's the difference right there of ministerial, meaning no discretionary approval. You still would need building permits, for example, though, versus a minor use permit is zoning administrator, and major use permits come to the planning commission. And so as an example, if you look at these tables in Article 27, and again, this is also further stipulated in each of the articles, like C1, for example, it lists uses down the left-hand side and zoning across the top. This happens to be for a zoning permit, which is kind of an over-the-counter quasi-ministerial thing, if you will. But then it gets into the major and minor use permits in Table B. Don't get motion sickness here. There we go. And so you'll see on the left-hand side, again, for example, a geothermal research well. It has these black bullet points here. Those require major use permits. Whereas anything with this empty, I don't know what you call that, empty circle here, is a minor use permit. For categories that are totally blank, that means it's actually just not allowed. But then in our zoning ordinance, you jump over to where those processes are explained. We have a zoning permit, minor use permit, and major use permit. So for example, now that we know what use requires a minor use permit, we open this article about minor use permits, explains that, has the application process, action by zoning administrator, as we were just discussing. It tells you the noticing requirements. So for zoning administrator, everything we do is a 10-day notice. In this case, we don't hold the hearing unless somebody requests one based off of the notice they receive. That is all specified in here as well. We have our findings for approval, which is what the zoning administrator and the planner, before it even goes forward, to answer your question previously. And then in major use permit, it's essentially the same thing, but it specifies that it goes to planning commission. And then these are the findings that the Planning Commission is basing their decision off of. And those come with recommendations from the planners, as you know. And I wanted to get back to a previous point where we talked about land use compatibility. That is also one of the findings here, in a sense. So that's one thing that you are able to weigh in on as well, like you mentioned. So I just wanted to show you kind of where those sections are, because I think it's helpful.
Yeah, thank you. That really helps. A question is, if the public wants to be involved, I'm thinking realistically, somebody would want to make some input. Do they have to have a hearing, hold a hearing in order to, for a citizen to contribute input? Or can they just write a letter of opinion or something?
They can always, it depends on what their ultimate goal is. If they're going to comment on a zoning administrator project, then, and have the zoning administrator consider their comments in making their decision, they would have to contact community development and ask for a hearing and contribute. But I suspect the contribution is the same as it would be for the board and the planning commission, in that they can attend by Zoom or Teams or whatever we use now, and they can submit in paper and writing. So they could come in to the department. So the commenting and the participation is the same. It's just the difference is that there isn't a regular meeting for the zoning administrator. It's a requested meeting. The public has to be more engaged in that. They have to say, no, I'd like to have this as a public review.
So with that, and you said that letters go out for a 10-day window to object to a project. Give me an example of what a project like that might be.
Yeah, we get a common one I've seen for minor use permits is like an overheight fence, for example, that somebody wants maybe in their front yard. What are some other examples of minor use permits? That's the one that came to the top of my head.
Collector's permit.
Collector's permit, if somebody wants to store, vehicles that they're working on. And so those are some examples of those. What we do.
And the notification would go to the.
Yep, you read my mind. So it's all of our notifications get published in the newspaper. They go to property owners within 300 feet or 725 feet, depending on the size of the parcel. And they also get posted. We try to do it via email as well. We have a notification list that Pam maintains in our office. And then you also have the CEQA side of things, right? When there's an initial study involved or an EIR, we see those notices post as well, which is what Commissioner Field was asking me about. That's in the hallway down there. It gets posted at the county clerk as well. But I'm sort of rambling about that. But back to the minor use permits, it would go to those entities.
So my practical question is, let me just give you an example. I run into someone at the grocery store and they say, hey, what's going on down the road at such and such a place? Where can I tell them to go online to figure out what's going on at whatever address? Is there?
That's our OpenGov system. Take it away, Michelle.
Right. So we do have our OpenGov system right now. Some of the information has limited access for the public, and the reason is because of our cultural reports and other confidential information. Unfortunately, in OpenGov, the settings to view those things are internal only or internal and public. And so we need the internal setting on, because that includes like air quality management, our fire districts, everybody for other agencies and departments that we send it to. So we can't, there's not a great solution. So right now we just have everything off as far as those. You can look up a project by parcel number, address. I'm not sure about property owner, but you definitely can by parcel number and address. We also have been producing monthly tracking sheets of all of our projects that we have in process. We have a notification list for that as well. We send it out to, I always say everybody and their mother, maybe that's not appropriate to say, and anybody else who requests that information. I just sent an email to OpenGov to see if there was a way to automatically publish that online on our planning OpenGov platform, because that would be even better. And then it actually takes quite a bit of staff amount of time for us to produce that list and make sure that it's accurate. So that's something that we're looking at in the future, is if there's an even better way and more efficient way to have that. And then it would just be online so that people didn't have to ask for it and get it emailed as well.
Thank you. I think that'd be a really good thing.
Yeah.
I know in the old days we used to write letters to the editor and everybody got wound up about it. And
Right.
But thank you.
And then, of course, you can always contact, we have certain members of the public that contact the planning division regularly and ask for project updates in their area, or, you know, of course, you could do like the public records request route, but as far as just basic information about what projects are going on, it would be that project list currently. Do you have anything to add?
Nope.
So when you said on the map, pulling up a parcel, what is that, by pulling up a parcel, what is that going to tell the person who's pulling that up?
Sure, let me see if I can get to the public side. I know I have the internal side. Give me one.
So while she's looking at
second.
that, I think that we're off to a very good start.
Still on the first page.
Yeah, we're on the first page, but that's okay, because I kind of like this question and answer thing, and we'll make sure that Commissioner Brown gets his time too. But I think we're going to probably stop on page 1 for now, just because I don't want to keep us all afternoon. And I think going forward, we'll sort of have a similar thing. We're going to start with a topic going through this handbook, but I want you to feel free to ask the questions, because this is really good stuff. So next time we'll be on page 2. But
moving right along through
yeah,
this,
right?
huh?
That's all right.
I can
Okay.
share my screen if that's okay.
Sure.
Show you what the public portal looks like. I just wanted to make sure I was on the public side, because I'm usually, you know, on the internal side. Let me back up here. So, we have, this is what our portal looks like for anybody that is not familiar. This is the OpenGov portal. We have planning.
Wait, how do you get there? How do you get to that page?
I have it bookmarked, but I think you could even just Google it. And we have it from our county website as well. We're happy to share the link. We also have fancy QR codes for anybody who's into that up at the front desks. But so then we have, we call them our landing pages for building, code enforcement, and planning, and then also PRA requests. So I'm going to click on planning, since that's what we're talking about here. Each of our divisions has an overview like this of what the division does, useful links, any other information, contact information for everybody, and then we have the planning application. I'm not going to click on it now, since that's sort of not exactly what we're talking about, but that is how folks apply. So, but then anybody in the public can go up here to the top right under search, and this is where you'll have locations or records. Records are going to be those PL numbers that you asked about previously. So I'll do just the project we were talking about, just off the top of my head, in 140 Soda Bay. This is going to be by location. And what it shows you is, we'll never show the owner information, because that's confidential, or we're not supposed to give that out anyway. So then it's going to show you all of these records. And what you're going to see is, this is that PL 2567, excuse me, was the use permit that came before the commission today. And then we also have a bunch of these historical documents. These were documents that were in Acela, our older system that then we switched to about a year ago now. So they'll tell you if they're active or stopped or completed. Some of the historical stuff is still just going to say active, but you can also click on any of them. So again, this is the one that we saw previously. So it'll tell you the application number, it'll tell you the applicant, the location, the date it was created, and it does have preliminary application information that they fill out, so it tells you something about it. You can see from here it's a commercial cannabis on a vacant land that also has a vineyard, and then it goes into some of these questions. We built this all into the system. All of our applicants fill out these questions. So it has a project description, grading and construction details, So you can actually see a lot about any of these projects just online. What you won't be able to see, as I mentioned, is all of the attachments. And like I said, that's due to some confidentiality and limitations in the system that we're hoping to work through to get a better, so you could at least see the site plans, for example. But you can certainly tell what's going on with this project as far as what's proposed just by that. I think you can even click into the historical ones. It's going to be a little less user-friendly in a sense, but it does tell you the record ID. This was a design review 2306. And again, it'll tell you just like the date tracking information about the dates and actions that happen. It does tell you those UP numbers, to your point, Commissioner Rosenthal, and then this is noting cannabis licenses. So what this was the actual project that we were just talking about. Everything got converted from Acela UP numbers to OpenGov PL numbers. So right now you're going to see both. That historical document, record, is the current use permit that was applied for.
And the applicant is not necessarily the property owner?
No, like in this case, it lists Trey, who was the consultant for that project, and maybe we're not supposed to be talking about that, but I just use that one as
Public knowledge, the public record.
So yeah, you're able to look up locations, and then, like I said, you could even do records. Let's see, I'm gonna make one up. Might be 04, let's see.
Yeah, also to get to that page, you can just put County of Lake OpenGov portal.
In Google.
And then it's like the first one that comes up too. And then you could do it for, if you're looking City of Clear Lake or City of Lakeport, it would
Yeah,
just
there we
be
go. So it has it right here.
so whatever city or county you want to look at.
And I believe the property owner name is public information. If anybody wants it, they can just go to the recorder's office.
Yes, correct. Yep, and then you can do the same for building and to submit code enforcement complaints right here in this portal.
Commissioner Brown, did you have?
Yeah, so there's a lot of good information. So the ministerial permits, or not permits, the process. And then we have the categorical exemptions. Are those two related to each other? Are they tied in together? And so, because the other part of this is, so if I see one that's saying request a hearing, and I request a hearing, am I still part of the public, and then I would be on that side of the project, or?
So
or the
this
hearing?
is an AB 52 and CEQA question. Go ahead, Michelle.
I was going to start with your first question about if ministerial and categorical exemptions are related. So when a project is fully ministerial, that means that it's actually not subject to CEQA. Now, when a project is discretionary, even if it's a minor use permit, that could also include issuing a grading permit, issuing a lake bed permit. Any action by the county that's discretionary is subject to CEQA. So the best example is just building a single family home, right? That's ministerial. You don't need any planning entitlements from us. You do need a building permit still, but that's my best example of like something that's totally ministerial.
Even if it's on top of a cultural site, a known cultural site?
Yes. Even if there's known historical site there, and the project will cut into it, if it is an entirely ministerial project, then CEQA will not be triggered and AB 52 does not apply.
So, but if it needed a grading permit?
Grading permits are ministerial.
Not all of them.
Not all of them, but some of
That's
them.
a loaded question, because then in our grading ordinance, we have 3 levels of grading permits. There's simple, standard, and complex. Complex permits require a hearing, a deeper CEQA analysis. So it would just depend on the level of disturbance that they were doing.
And so then if it is that situation, a single family home, and then it changes down the future to another project where there is review, how does that apply? And then you're going to say, oh, we're going to go and review the damage or potential impacts already and address it, or?
CEQA takes every project as it is at the time of the initiation of the analysis. So if somebody, if you want to be very dark about it, if somebody they know they're going to apply for a project and then they know there's say a historical building on the site, if they wanted to be unscrupulous, they could go and do something to it before CEQA starts, and then CEQA begins after that damage. So the idea is that CEQA only takes the environment as it is in that moment and whether or not you're going to make it worse. And the idea is to make sure that this project does not. It isn't going to look backwards. Say you had an orchard there, a couple of vineyards, and they've done a lot of tilling. None of that will be considered in the current project as it's applied. What will be considered is that environment as it stands right now, and how the proposed project for the future will impact that environment.
Yes, correct. And so why I bring that up is because it's happened multiple times here in Lake County. And I'm not sure if any of the commission is aware of again, the historical parts of and ramifications, and even to the point where in a specific instance, there was a court case brought about and the judge determined that it was a moot argument because the damage was already done. You couldn't do anything about it. And so those are things that are, again, are...
Yeah. It would be a different... So there would be different rules that apply in that instance. So, for example, if the action that a property owner takes, say it is a tribal cultural resource known in the area or not known and discovered, and there is no project yet, or the project is ministerial and does not trigger discretionary review, there are other rules that do come into play. There are federal rules that prohibit disturbance and removal. There are state rules that do. The actions they take may be otherwise a violation of the ordinance and the community development. And your commission, you've seen it, one of the findings that you have to make is that no existing violations occur, and that's violations of the cited code sections of the ordinance, the county ordinance. So if their prior actions were in essence a violation of the ordinance, then and you are convinced of that by the record, then you wouldn't be able to make that finding and you couldn't issue the permit, and they'd have to correct the violation before you did.
I also wanted to point out there have been instances, now that I'm thinking about it, where there was a known historical site. Like we have our inventory of historical structures, for example. That's a little bit different than, well, it is different, obviously, than tribal cultural resources. But there was one, my brain is not totally remembering all of the details, but there was one for a house that was proposed that we did require a cultural resources study because it was noted on, maybe it was the APN page or something, that there was a potential site on there. So you can require certain studies just to show that there would not be an impact, or you could totally avoid that area, for example.
And one of the, I think I asked this question maybe early on when I was a commissioner. And so if there's no cultural resource study housed at the Chris Center, you don't have to look any further for any existing. So the example is Lake County historian Henry Malden did a number of surveys on the current forms, the old forms. He was not an archaeologist, but there are some old forms where archaeologists have done work, but it's kind of like not a specific project. They did this as a part of their graduate work and came up in recorded sites. If that information is housed at the county, the library over here, is that information accessible to you all, or do you even go and look for it, or does somebody have to bring it and say, hey, this is a report that was done and is maintained over here across the world in the historical, in the documents at the museum?
Yeah, I don't know if they were not submitted to the, and you've confirmed that they were not submitted to the Chris Center?
I have not confirmed. I've seen a lot of the accounts of Henry Malden, some of the students who've come up and done some of the work from Sonoma State, different stuff like that. So
That's interesting. Commissioner, what I'd recommend in circumstances of that, like that, that's you've just illustrated the very function of a cultural, consultation, because the point of that discussion, ongoing discussion with tribal members, is that they may have information about resources that would be applicable to a particular project or projects. And if you're aware of those, and you say you were the tribal representative for consultation in a particular project, and you attended the consultation, and you were aware of those, you would bring them up. You could say, look, I'm aware that there are these studies that were done. They may include this project. Well, you should gather them, or here's a copy, or what have you, and we can reconvene at a later date after staff has had a chance to review it to see if it applies here, and then information like that would be included in the consultation. So that would be its very purpose, would be to.
And so, but as long as it's not at CRIS, then it's not the responsibility of the lead agency to access that information.
The lead agency contacts the tribes for information that they may have. The lead agency is, I think it's written in the ordinance that they contact CRIS. There isn't an obligation that they go out and search every possible resource in existence that might have information.
Okay, and so why I ask is because these are records maintained by the county, and maybe not necessarily planning or community development, but they're records that have been maintained historically with the maps that are over there.
No, you're asking great questions.
Yeah,
We're going to take that further offline. Yeah, and look into that.
And so ideally, that would be the time if the tribe or the representative does have that to bring it about.
Yeah.
But if they don't have it, then
it might not be considered.
Right.
And so certainly now I'm sure that staff is aware of it, that they'll check to see if they are at CRIS and include it potentially. But they're not generally, because usually it's not common when it comes to tribal resources to have a lot of, outside of certain state designated repositories, to have a lot of information that relates to resources, and understandably, but if you're asking if there's a legal obligation under CEQA for the agency to go out and search every historical record, there is not. They are required to reach out to resource experts and resource responsible agencies. This includes tribal governments. And they are responsible for searching. And just because a county sort of finger may be maintaining records, it doesn't mean that they are accessible to absolutely every other part of the county. So definitely, if a participant, any commenter, not just tribes, but if any commenter is aware of information that the department may not have, it's important to share that.
Yeah, and I appreciate the response, because it does show that the collaboration and working together is important. And so those are questions I had when I was over on this side before, and just never knew the mechanism, where they applied, whose responsibility it was. And I always took the position it was, if we have the information, it's our responsibility to bring it about as well. And so so that's kind of where that question is coming from, and just trying to, again, know what's the legal responsibility, what's not, how that can look.
And when I say legal responsibility, I mean, so your commission is asked to make two decisions. And I know it's in front of you all the time, but sometimes it can get blurred to where because they overlap, right, as far as their content and your analysis. You have a use permit decision, and you have a CEQA decision. And when I say legal responsibility, in that conversation we just had, I mean under CEQA. Your commission always has the option, if you don't have enough information, if something isn't clear for you, to ask and to direct staff, this isn't clear, or do we have all this information from over here, or do we have, is there some way to clarify X or Y? You can ask. You can always ask staff for clarification. And for both CEQA and for the use permit, but they are in effect different decisions, different sets of rules that govern them. So it may not be a requirement under CEQA, but it may be part of the whole process when it comes to both the use permit and CEQA, if that makes sense.
And one other thing that we do as well, to your point, Commissioner Brown, about projects that don't trigger AB 52 or a major use permit, is we do include all of the tribal governments on all of our RFRs. Those are our agency referrals. So early in the process, that's one of the first things we do after completeness review. We send it out to all agencies and departments. And as a department policy, and we've heard it, from the tribal communities and the commission, so that's something that we have done that we're not required to do legally, as far as getting back to the legalities of it, because we do want that input even on projects that don't trigger an initial study, for example. So in that case, if a tribe responds, then we meet with them, we listen to their concerns, and sometimes that can lead to an initial study needing to be required when originally we thought maybe it wasn't. So just wanted to point that out as well. And lastly, to your question about if you wanted to, I'm going to use the word appeal one of our decisions, we do have the administrative appeals under Article 58 of our code that anybody can appeal one of our administrative decisions. So that would give an opportunity. It does come to the Planning Commission, so then, I don't know, council can answer your question about how you would handle that, but anybody does have that opportunity for those administrative appeals that are made, or decisions that are made at like the county.
Yeah, the zoning ordinance provides that any decision made by the department can be appealed. So if it's made first at the zoning administrator level, then that would be appealed to your commission. And if it's made first at the commission, then it would be appealed to the board.
And I think that topic is going to close us out for the day.
Okay, so that was page 1 of 327.
Page 1. We are off to a great start.
Okay.
I have a question or a comment, though, if I could, before we close.
It's up to the chair.
Of course.
I defer to her.
Actually, I have a couple. But one is that on the new format of the staff report, one of the things that I was missing was that it doesn't indicate what district the project is in. So if that could be added.
Good.
So,
Yeah, good suggestion.
And then the other thing, and this could be discussed later, I'm just going to throw this out there for food for thought so we can kind of think about it, but in the format of our presentation, and I'm sure that some of my fellow commissioners perhaps have heard this complaint as well from the public, that we have a project that's presented as, you know, I'll just use today's as an example. Everybody has 3 minutes to speak. The public has 3 minutes to speak. We have an applicant who's sitting out there in the audience who gets 3 minutes, but then also gets to stay up at the mic and interact and answer a lot of questions. I'm just wondering if we can't change that format up a little bit, that if the applicant, I know in the past, and I've seen in the Board of Supervisors meeting, that sometime the applicant would be sitting up here with staff. If there are questions that we as a body would be asking that we want input or need input from the applicant, versus, you know, or questions that the staff can or maybe can't answer, so that we can kind of separate that and make that more comfortable and put that into a format, so to speak, or whatever, so that it's expected by everyone, including the public, and so that there's a better feeling of fairness, I guess.
I'd like to discuss that at another time.
Yeah, and I tried today to let everybody know they had 3 minutes. Viewing over the last period of time that I've been on the commission, I've seen that there's often an imbalance in the opportunity for input. And
It would be up to the chair and the commission as to how to run that. In
right,
the past,
so
they have let the...
To Commissioner Field's point, I think we ought to discuss how we want to do that, considering recommendations here, so that when we have a hearing, that everybody feels like they have an opportunity to be heard, because that's why we're doing this.
In the past, the commission has allowed applicants themselves at the table to answer questions the commission has, and provide any clarifications, and so they weren't restricted by the 3 minutes, but the rest of the public was.
And I think that, you know, does it change the status of the applicant if they're sitting up here on the dais rather than in the audience? I think that what we want to do is, you know, make sure that everybody has as equal an opportunity to provide input and concerns.
It is ultimately up to the commission and the chair on how to run the meeting. I would point out, though, that the applicant does have a different status in the sense that they are defending a project that they have worked with staff on. So
I see, good point.
Yeah, so, and they would be most able to answer detailed questions related to their proposal. But again, that would be what your commission and the chair prefer.
And just quickly, I'd like to add to that, because we've had a particular project in the past or whatever where the applicant basically gave a fairly long presentation. And I don't know that we want to. I think we've got to draw a line between, you know, presentation that goes on that is in addition to staff versus important information that we have questions about that need to be answered that only the applicant can provide for us.
I think drawing the distinction between an editorial presentation and informational conversation. So I would like to, you know, so have a little more discussion, not today, about how we would like to structure it, you know, rather than just, you know, the person with the gavel to decide this. So. I know. So, all right, so we will conclude our staff development after.
I do have to step out.
Okay, completing page 1. Okay, so is it quick update? Do you have to give
Yes,
us a
thank
quick
you.
update?
The board at its March 17th meeting, when we were discussing community development's fiscal status, did direct staff to issue out an RFP for a consultant to take a look at our fee analysis and our organizational structure to make recommendations on efficiencies going forward. That RFP will conclude on April 24th. My second announcement is
Organizational structure for
community development.
Thank you.
Possible reorganization. Also, this is Pam's last meeting with you. We have greatly appreciated her. She is moving on to another county job, and we wish her the very, very best in her future endeavors.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you.
And Yolanda is the poor person who's going to take over and cover this for her. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, welcome.
But welcome.
At this point, we're not going to replace Pam's position. We're going to split up PC clerk duties amongst existing staff. So hang in there. We're in for a bit of a ride.
Okay, all right.
But
Well,
I have no doubt Yolanda will be very capable.
All right, thank you. Then I will move for adjournment. We don't have to vote on this, do we?
Nope.
Adjourn. Thank you all.